This is Heather Stephen, and you're listening to Pieces to Peace, Anchoring on the Other Side of Grief. This podcast focuses on people who have emerged from the depths of their grief, their transition from surviving the darkest of days to seeing the light again. Through my own experiences of grief, I have learned how healing it is to know that I am not alone. My hope is that those seeking comfort and relief will find some here and leave feeling reassured that there is life again. There are brighter days ahead, just around the corner. Janel Lamb, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you,
So
Heather.
excited.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy and have had some really busy months prior to this and just fitting me in. I really appreciate it. So tell us who you are. Give us a little bit of who Janel Lamb is.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much again for having me. This is awesome. I love to tell my story. I feel like it helps me. It helps people I talk to. But I'm turning 50 this year. I'm a mom of 5, grandmother of almost 5. Just had our 4th grandbaby last on Sunday, so just a few days ago.
That's
And
the best.
my daughter is expecting her 2nd baby in January, so I'll have 5 grandbabies. My husband and I, Mark, have been married for 30 years. In September, it'll be 30 years. We'll be celebrating in Hawaii with some friends, which will be really
Awesome.
fun.
Yay.
So yeah, we are just hardworking Arizonans who just love this country. We love our family. We've just dedicated our lives basically to public service at this point. That wasn't my plan going into my adulthood. That wasn't really in what I thought was going to happen, but here we are. And, so I'm a law enforcement wife. I was a flight attendant for 9 years. I did hair for 25 years out of my home, mostly just to, a little side money for myself.
Yeah.
A little stay-at-home mom job. Because like I said, I have 5 little kids. We had our 5 kids in 6.5 years. So I was a very busy young mom. Yeah.
Yes.
All my whole 20s were just basically giving birth every 18 months. It felt like.
Right.
But, we had them early, and then they kind of all left home together too, because they were so close in age. And so it's been, we're empty nesters now. It's been quite the transition. So that's basically who I am. I'm just, support my husband and, do what I can. I'm a public speaker and author. But my family is the most important, and that's where I find my most joy and happiness is with them. I'm the one always trying to get everybody to come over, and my kids are popping in and out of my house all day long. I feel like still even in their 20s, and it's great. We love it. So
they live close then, all of them, or?
Yep, they all live close. The one that lives the furthest away is about 40 minutes. And he's up in here all the time anyway, and they come over and swim all the time, and they're up in our neighborhood all the time anyway. So
that's so fun to have everybody just close, and holidays and just so fun additions to your family. I love the grandbabies though. That is like the best.
And I just got a new one, so the fresh ones are just they're so sweet and snuggly.
They are. And then you really can just, give them back.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I don't need to be up all night. I don't need to change diapers. I mean, although I would do all of those things, but I've got great daughter and daughter-in-laws, and they're amazing. So they do a good job.
So good. So happy to hear that. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, but really quick, your 2 books, The Sheriff's Wife, Holding It All Together Behind the Scenes in Politics. Love it. And then Bravery and Blinders. Did you write them close together?
There's about 2 years apart. 2 years apart. So the first one I wrote because my husband was writing a book. He was getting more popular on the speaking circuit, and so he needed a book. And we had lots of ideas for him. And I'm kind of more, English is my strong suit. Like, I'm not a math person. I'm an English person.
Right.
So,
Me too.
I was more helping him construct paragraphs and different things. And as I was helping him, he said, you both should write a book too. And I thought, that's weird. I wonder what I would say, what would my message be? And as I was helping him, my message became clear because it started bringing back to me all of the pitfalls and speed bumps and different things that I hit while we were running for office the first time. So he ran for sheriff in 2015, 2016, here in
Okay.
Pinal County, which is a really big county. It's the size of Connecticut. There's, 600
Wow.
employees, and yeah,
Okay.
it's a big deal. And so we kind of jumped in because we felt like it's the right thing to do. And it was, but we really didn't know a whole lot about campaigning or,
Right.
Republican Party or any, like, we didn't know politics at
Right.
all, really. I mean, we just knew our own experience. We didn't really have a lot of, connections or anything like that. And we just used sales tactics, and we just kind of were fish out of water. So I wrote this as kind of a guidebook that I would have loved to have when I was in it. And as
Oh,
we go to these sheriff's conferences all over the country, and other spouses of sheriffs are always looking for, camaraderie and tips and
right.
tricks and just sharing our stories. And so I wrote the book that I wished I would had when we were running, because I was going in just completely blind. And
Yeah.
and there was nothing out there for me. There was no resources at all. So I made my own resource. And then
And
I
they're
read
just
my
real
book back.
topics.
Yeah, yeah. And just my own experiences. Like, there's no
Mhm.
right or wrong answer. It's just my own experiences, my own research, my own feelings. And then as I read, about a year and a half after I released that book, I read it back and I thought, oh my word, I don't even recognize this woman. I mean, I'm such a different person going into
Wow.
it, and I learned so much more. And so my husband was writing a second book, and so I wrote one alongside him as well. Again, so we both have two books, and it was just more of everything I'd learned. I'd lost my mom, I had lost 90 pounds, I had,
Yes.
learned how it was to live in the public eye, because my husband just rose quickly to, a lot of public viewing and,
Yeah.
popularity. And so there was a whole lot of
Yep.
pitfalls with that. And you really don't hear the other side of what happens when a video goes viral, or when, you're under attack from people and you find out who your real
Right.
friends are, and what does that look like?
Right.
They'll say,
Mhm.
oh, it's lonely at the top. Well, I have a lot of real examples of that, so I just thought, I'm going to just write it up. You never hear from the spouses of political people.
No,
You hear maybe their book, but you never hear the other side. And we're a tight-knit couple, so we
I
experience
love
everything
it.
together. And yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, okay, good. So, yeah, start telling us your story.
Okay. In 2022 was just a really hard year. I had lost my mom at the beginning of the year suddenly. She had been feeling not great, and she's a nurse. So, of course, the nurses are the worst patients.
Right.
And she just wouldn't go in
Mhm.
to get things looked at. Her stomach was hurting and hurting and hurting. And she ended up having pancreatic cancer, which I thought, that's just, it's cancer, but this is 2022. People survive cancer all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that pancreatic cancer is just totally different. And she passed away within about 2.5 months of her diagnosis, which, for a healthy 67-year-old woman who had just retired, who was just getting going on doing the fun stuff, the traveling and all that, it was just really devastating to me. She and I were close. She lived in Montana, but we talked, multiple times a week, and we were really tight and close. And so that was tough. And I was really just having a hard time just dealing with that. And then that was it was Memorial Day weekend that she passed away. So the end of May. And then, I got a knock on the door late. It was about 8:30 at night on a Friday night. My husband had just come home. He'd been out at a dinner and a meeting, and I was home just having one of those quintessential Christmas time evenings where I had my jammies on, and I had the Christmas movie on, and I was making, wrapping presents and getting on top of everything, because we're about halfway through the month. It was December 16th, and you get this knock on the door, and you're not expecting anyone coming over at 8:30 at night on a Friday night. I'm like, who in the heck's at the door? The dog is going crazy. And we're like, what? They teach you in the academy because Mark was a cop for almost 20 years. And they teach you when you come out of the academy, they sit down with the spouses and they say, look, at some point you may get a knock at your door, and you're going to open it, and it's going to be people in uniform, and you need to not pass out. You need to keep your wits about you. It doesn't necessarily mean that your deputy has died. You just need to, stay strong, just and deal with it. So they warn you, and the whole time that
Wow.
he was in law enforcement, you always think there's only been like one other time that I just was scared. And so then now he's home with me. So you go through that confusion. You're just confused. You're
Yeah.
like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, why are there people at my door? He's here. I'm here. And
Yep.
we got the dog in the other room, and they came in, and it was the sheriff from the other county, and Maricopa County is a huge county. So it's like
Right.
a really
Huge.
big deal for him to
Yeah.
be at someone's door. And then a couple of our chiefs from our department, and then a couple other cops I didn't recognize. And I'm just, your mind just starts you're just in this weird, like, what? And
Yeah.
one of Mark's deputies had actually and his wife and his family had been friends of ours before Mark was even a cop. So 20 full years we had known them.
Wow.
And he was as devastated as us because he knew our son, and he just came in, and the only thing he could say, because, he's a cop, so he's trained, but yet this is so personal. And he just said, Cooper and the baby are dead. And I just, it just takes your breath away. You just can't, you're not breathing, you're not thinking, you're like the room's spinning, and you're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean that? And so he starts kind of trying to explain. And I was just looking through a little tunnel. Like, I didn't even know what was happening. And I'm hyperventilating. I'm trying to breathe, and I'm down on the ground, and they're like,
yeah.
Get up. You sit on the couch. I was like, I just need the ground. It's
Yes.
literally the room's just spinning. What had happened was my son had gone to work, and his fiance and the baby, they all lived with us. They had lived with us since they had gone through some hard times, and they came to live at home. And so she went to go pick him up from work. And then I think they were going to cash his check because it was a Friday. He just got paid. He'd gotten his Christmas little bonus. And they were going to a bank, and I think they had tried to turn around. So we're like, why are they driving in this neighborhood? But I think they were trying to go to the bank. And so they turned left, and a truck being driven by a young man who was under the influence of marijuana and alcohol was going, 50 miles an hour, and just T-boned him, plowed right into him, took him off the road into the side. My son, Cooper, he was 22, and his little baby, my granddaughter, 11 months old, were killed instantly. And then my daughter-in-law, Caroline, she was driving, and she was partly out of the car. We think that maybe she had just a moment where she tried to unbuckled her seatbelt and was trying to get out. And obviously she was in really bad shape. Honestly, if the paramedics had gotten there 5 minutes later, she wouldn't have survived the accident at that moment. But they were able to get her stabilized, but her brain stem was shredded, and she had multiple fractures, and her kidney was lacerated. Like, she just had a lot of broken bones and internal injuries, and was unconscious. She was in a coma. She never did come out. She was on life support for a week, and they said that even if she did come off of life support by some miracle, she would be just a vegetable. She would have no cognitive function. She couldn't speak, see, talk, nothing. And so she could hear us. And so it was actually a little bit of a blessing. I want to talk a little bit about, there were so many hard things. Obviously it was an extreme tragedy to lose 3 kids all at once.
Unimaginable.
And they were just kids. Caroline was 20, Cooper was 22. They were just so young, and they had gone through so much. I could talk for hours about what all they had gone through to even just get to that point where they were driving and thriving and working and having a family. And they actually had been talking about getting married, right? Like maybe on Christmas Day, having my husband just do the ceremony, and just with our little family. And so yeah, they
what was your grandbaby's name?
Elaine. And I had that for my necklace I have on today too. So
I was gonna ask you what your necklace said.
I had bought Christmas necklaces for all the girls with all of their kids' names on them. So this is a gift that I had bought for Caroline. And I had bought one for Caroline that said her name on it, but I actually gave that to her mom. As a gift.
Wow.
And so yeah, it was hard. We had a lot of Christmas gifts for them, and we had we were just, it was unbelievable. When they were trying to tell us what was happening, it was like it's like they were talking and the words were just bouncing off my brain. Like I wasn't processing anything. I just couldn't hear. It was so weird how your shutdown mode goes in, when you hear something so devastating and you just think, how will I deal with that? And it was almost like I just couldn't. And so I called my daughter. She just lives 5 minutes away. And I called my daughter and I don't even know what I said to her, but she was immediately within a minute. I don't even know how fast they drove, but
I bet.
her fiance and my little grandson came in and she was just hysterical. And my little grandson, he was so cute. He was 3 at the time and he goes, Mommy, you need to breathe. Mommy, breathe like this.
My goodness.
Oh my word. And so Zach, her fiance, took Brody home and we had our friend, one of our chiefs, drive us to the hospital. But I tried to call my dad because you just think, who do I need to call? What do I need to do? You think, what happens next? I don't know. And so I tried to call my dad and he answered, which I couldn't believe he answered. And I couldn't say anything. And Mark was in the closet trying to get some shoes on and bring me my coat. And I just had to hand the phone to Matt, our chief, and just say, I can't. So he had to tell my dad. And of course, my entire family was just devastated, of course. And and so it was actually a little bit good that we had to go to the hospital to be with Caroline, just because it would have been really hard, I think, to just be home and have you need action. You need something to give you action.
A distraction,
do something
too.
Like you're helping or you're, serving some sort of purpose.
Yes.
I can't imagine if we had to stay at our house. Like, I don't know. I would have been a crazy person. I mean, I already was a crazy person at that moment, but like, I don't know. How I would have coped with that. It was comforting to be able to go to the hospital, have people come to give her a blessing. I don't think she knew the state of Cooper and Elaine. So they told her and they said they could feel her body change. Like she was, I think she was trying to fight because she thought she has a husband and a baby that she needs to, live for.
Yeah.
And then I think when she found out, even though she was, in a coma, they can still keep her. And I think learning that gave her some like, okay, I'll be okay. I can choose. And that's what they told her. You can choose whether you stay or whether you go be with Cooper and your baby. And so she ended up living for a week. And then we took her off life support. And it was hard. It was Christmas Eve.
Oh my word.
I think it was the day before Christmas Eve. We took her and she passed on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And so, but we're just so grateful that they're together. We would have hated to have somebody left behind.
Right.
In that situation. So, there were so many things that were so, so hard, but yet we're so glad for. It feels weird to say you're happy about anything at all. But at the same time, you're kind of grasping at the good thing is, well, there's like 2 of those, but one thing I want to talk about too is there's always some little pieces of advice that I give. So my husband's a very well-known sheriff, and so that was great, but it also was a little bit hard because once they found out that it was his son, our son, and baby and daughter-in-law, it just was this flood of support and prayers. And like when I say an outpouring, I mean like you couldn't even handle it all. And which was great. But then also like there was a time where we needed to go to the store, and we were gonna wire some money and we were gonna just try to get in and get out of there at Walmart. And we're standing in line and we had no less than 15 people come up to us just sobbing, crying, wanting to hug us. Like people, we had no idea who these people were. They were just complete strangers. So on one hand, it was so wonderful to have the support of strangers. But on the other hand, it was like, I just want to stand here in my little line and I just want to do this little errand I have, and I just want to get in my car and drive home,
Yes.
Everywhere we went. I mean, people don't maybe realize that there's a lot you have to do. There's a lot of tasks involved when someone passes away that you're in charge of, like a child.
Right. Yeah.
And I know you had asked me kind of how we navigated that as a couple.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky because we're very Mark and I are very complementary to each other, and we already had a very strong union, a very strong base, a very defined roles in our marriage all these years. And so now when something really hard and devastating happens, it's almost like you double down on those roles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like one thing that I was so grateful that he could do for me and for us was handle the coroner, handle the police report, handle the, getting their stuff out of their car. Like he already had people's phone numbers that he could just call and say, hey, can we come by and get this stuff out of
Right.
their car?
hmm
The wallet, all of that,
Right.
the phones,
Mhm.
things that he could handle, getting us down to talk to the funeral home, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
My role was my friends really stepped up to the plate as far as just supporting us and being there, but bringing in the meal and putting together the program for the funeral and finding the clothes and that sort of stuff. That was kind of my strength, was that
Right.
kind of stuff, more of that nurturing stuff. And his stuff was more of the nuts and bolts, and both had to be
Right.
handled.
Yep. Yep.
But we just were able to, there was at one point, a friend of ours had started a GoFundMe, and, not only are us and our kids really tight, but our kids are tight with their cousins.
Okay.
Especially on my husband's side, because they're all the same age. The cousins on my side are all little kids right now. I'm the oldest and he's the youngest. So
Okay.
his siblings were having kids all at the same time as us.
Okay.
And so the aunts and uncles, the cousins, everybody's really tight knit. So we chose to spend some of that GoFundMe money on bringing the family into town for the funeral. And it was going to be over New Year's, which was convenient, work wise and different things for
Yep.
people. It's kind of a dead time. No pun
It
intended, but
is.
it's kind of a low energy time anyway. And so
True.
it worked out just with the timing and everything. And so, but he was on the phone getting tickets for people. And I was like, this is not something you have to do right now. Like, why are you, and I could tell it was like a little bit stressful trying to get everyone's correct names and birth dates and all these little details. And, when you're going through this massive grief, the details are what go away first. I mean, you can't think in detail at all.
No,
It's just,
you're right.
It's just a blanket sort of thing. You're just feeling everything. You can't think. And so he was working so hard. And then the other thing he was doing was he was answering all the text messages. I mean, he must have gotten no less than 1,500 text messages. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I can imagine.
And
Wow.
he was sitting there and he was answering text messages. And I'm sitting there going, can I feed myself today? Like, that's the last thing I'm doing is picking up my phone,
Right.
And
right.
and I said to him, I go, nobody expects you to answer their text messages right now. They're just being supportive. Like, people don't think you're going to answer. And he goes, this is keeping me busy right now, because he's not a home person. Like, he's never home. He's always out, busy, gone, doing meetings, whatever. So just to be in our house was just unnerving for kind of all of us. It's like, why are you here? Like, we've been here all day without leaving. It's like, this is so weird. But it was giving him something to do. And for me, to be understanding of like, dude, if you want to answer text messages, go ahead. But I'm not picking up my phone. Like, that's not interesting to me at all.
Right.
And it was actually just overwhelming to, because I still had, a couple hundred messages that I'm just I'm like, they know I've seen it. They know I love them. I appreciate it.
Right.
And so just kind of giving each other the space to do what I know he needs to do. He needs to stay busy. That's his coping. I need to shut down. That's my coping. And giving each other the space to do what we need to do and not trying to expect the other one to do what we want them to do or think they should do, I think was something that we normally, conduct ourselves that way. But then now in this situation, just to really double down on that and not, judge each other for how we're feeling at any certain time. There's just a lot to unpack. The other thing that I tell people is let people love on you. Let people do things for you.
Yes.
Let people serve you, because it's sometimes so hard to remember, especially when you're the parent or the loved one, the closest person. You tend to think you're the only one feeling it. It's hard to see everybody else's grief. The grief just from our community. People that, I mean, I hated my kids having tattoos. I hated Cooper's tattoos. I thought they were ugly and horrible, and most of them were just, but you know, those kids spent a lot of time down at the tattoo shop, and they had one that they liked, and they got really tight with those people. Like, those people were hurting by losing Cooper and Caroline. So just to remember that there's a lot of other people that want to help, because they're hurting too, and that's how they are going to relieve some of their sadness, is to feel like they're doing something. So let people do something. It's going to help them. It's not about you. It's about them, and letting them feel like they've done something. And it all helps so much. Some neighbors came over. They had actually moved out of the neighborhood, and then they were just back to visit for the holidays. And I just said, I need somebody to think for me. I can't, because they're like, what do you need? You get that question a lot. You know, what do you need? What can I do? How can I help you? You don't know. Like, I'm like, I don't know what I need. But what I needed was people to just think of things and then just do it. Just execute it.
Yep. I love
like
that
one example,
point.
like with the neighbors, they came over, and I was like, I don't know, I'm going to have 30 people in my house, because we had flown all these people in. Well, they were all staying at the house. Another friend brought over a second RV. So I had 2 RVs in my driveway, my house full of people. And,
oh my goodness.
They all have little kids. And so my neighbor was like, well, what if we rented you a bounce house for the weekend? Well, you have, because I think I said something like, I'm going to have 15 kids under the age of 10 in my house. I don't even know what I need. And they were like, well, maybe you need a bounce house. And I was like,
that's brilliant.
That would be amazing. So there was just like sort of things like I would have never come up on that on my own.
Yeah.
But other people with more clear heads can think. Another thing that really helped us was when my friends brought in the meals. I'm going to get emotional because I just appreciated it so much. Because we had a lot of people to feed. Not only did they bring me crock pots of soup, like for the night of the viewing, we were going to have people coming into town, just being able to change clothes and come straight to the funeral home. So we needed something. So they brought soups that were just in crock pots all over my kitchen. And it was great because there was different varieties and people could just eat a little or a lot, whatever.
Yeah.
But not only did they do that, she came back, got all the dishes and returned them to the people. I mean, that kind of stuff, you cannot put a price on that. That was just like, so there's just so many things. And so like those kind of things are the kind of things that I'll be thinking of. And I'm not, we've had it happen. Some very, very close friends of ours who were super wonderful to us when we lost our kids, lost their son last year, just a year ago, not even a year ago now. And it was just helpful to be able to, I felt bad because we were on vacation, so I couldn't help like I thought I could, but just being there, being the first ones at the house, just bring some donuts. Don't ask, just show up.
Just do it. Yeah.
And have everything disposable, like just all that kind of stuff.
Make it easy.
Make it easy. Yeah. So you don't have to think, because they can't think. They can't think. And sometimes adding just one more thing, like a dish to wash, is going to throw you into a tailspin. It could be the dumbest, most unrelated thing.
It's so true.
Those are like my biggest piece of advice, is let everybody help you and then make it as easy as possible. And they need people to think for them.
I love that.
They're just listening.
Those are perfect. Those are perfect.
And it's okay to ask for help too. Like it's okay to say, this is what I need. People want
to.
They do.
Yeah.
They're
not going to feel burdened.
No. And I think it really helped people to help us.
That's
another
so great.
thing we did was it was after the funeral. So the neighborhood where they had the accident was just a really family oriented, wonderful neighborhood.
I know that neighborhood very well.
They have a big Christmas light. Their whole neighborhood does a Christmas light show. Is one of those where you can park and you can walk down all the streets, and there's hot chocolate, and it's a whole thing. They had to shut down the lights that night because it was at one of the scene was shut down for hours, and so they just were like, we're canceling the lights. they didn't even know it was
Yeah.
our kids or anything. They just were like, this horrible, horrible accident. I know people, I think a couple people had it on their Ring camera, the actual accident,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
which I have
Oh,
not
wow.
seen and I don't want to.
Oh, my
It was
goodness.
but on that note, it was very traumatizing for that neighborhood. It was very difficult for a lot of people. And people heard the crash and came running out. Like, I mean, it has to be pretty loud. If you're inside your house and you
Right.
hear something like that, and we got a lot of
Yeah.
messages from people who were on the scene trying to give them CPR and pull them out of the cars and trying to help them. And so in honor of those folks, we did a little get together. A friend of mine owns a Facebook page that's really big. It's called Go Gilbert. So I knew she'd be a
Okay.
great resource to help me. And so to get the word out, so we just had a little get together and just kind of down, not at the scene, obviously, but just kind of in one of the little
Right.
green belts there. And we had a
Mm-hmm.
little get together because I wanted to give people an opportunity to come and meet us and just see that we're okay, give us a hug. I mean, we were getting messages saying, you know, my sister was at the scene. I just want, you know, she's not sleeping. Like, people are really
Oh, my goodness.
struggling, just having that,
Yeah.
being there. And another thing that was hard was knowing, so it was a crime scene. And so the
Mm.
kids were in the grass, covered, but they were there till like 10:30 at night. The accident
Oh,
happened at like
wow.
3:45 in the afternoon,
Oh,
45, I think it was like early evening. And just knowing that they were out there for so long, and it was upsetting people in the neighborhood to see
yeah.
the kids be there for so long without being
Yeah.
taken away. And you know,
Oh,
it's just one of those things. And that was hard for me too. That was hard for me too, to know that they're just right there in Gilbert, just, you know, 30 minutes
right.
away, and I
Oh,
couldn't go and see them. And I do have a little bit of regret about that. I kind of wished I would have, but like my husband goes, they would never let you near them. They would never let you over there. They would
they
never let you.
wouldn't?
Oh,
Oh,
and I'm
man.
like, are you sure? He's like, no, they
So,
would not. They wouldn't. He's like, believe
oh,
me, I've
man.
worked a lot of accident scenes. They would
Yeah.
not let you near the kids. And he's like, it's better that we didn't go. And I know, but it could have
Yeah.
been more. And
I
you
know.
know, just
Oh, your mama heart.
kind
Like,
of a
you can't
little.
help it.
No, and then we didn't see him until the funerals. We didn't see him, so it was tough.
Wow.
And that was 2 weeks.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
So
was.
it wasn't like you had to go identify. There wasn't
Mm-mm.
anything like that. And
No,
okay.
yeah, we had people that just handled it. And
And dressed them.
yeah, the funeral
Okay.
home, people dressed them.
Okay.
And God, we brought
Okay.
them the clothes. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
actually a really funny story. We had bought some stuff. We bought some shoes and stuff for them that at like DSW or something. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was getting closer to Christmas, and we needed to. I'm like, I don't want to have a whole Christmas tree of their stuff. It was just really hard. And so I
Yeah.
took like some of the shoes. I got him some Hey Dudes, got Cooper some Hey Dudes.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
we were getting them for
Yep.
everybody. And so I took Cooper's Hey Dudes back. And while we were there, we saw these socks, and they had said at the funeral home, they said, bring them. No, I said, does he need shoes? And he said, no shoes, just bring socks. So we're checking out, and my husband sees these Tapatio socks. And Cooper loved hot sauce. Like, that was his thing. Like, my
Oh.
pantry still has a ton of hot sauce and ghost pepper
Uh-huh.
powder and all sorts of stuff. Because
Oh.
he would just sprinkle it on everything, make it as spicy as possible. And so these Tapatio socks, Mark's like, we should get these socks for Cooper. I was like, he would love those socks. And so we
Oh.
brought him the socks and this and that. Well, we actually, I don't know if you want to delve into this very far, but we actually went to talk to a medium.
Oh,
And
yeah, go ahead.
that was one of the things he mentioned, was that he loved the socks. Well, what
No.
it was he said to the medium was, I love the cool shit they put on my feet. And
No.
she's like, what is this, like some sort of new shoes? Like, what did he have on his feet? And we were like, the socks. He loved the socks.
That is
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
So there was just some little things
Oh,
like that. I
yeah.
mean, I do kind of want to talk about how we changed. But there was some things that used to happen after they passed that would make it really hard on me. Like, they drove a little red Toyota Corolla with tinted
Mhm.
windows. And it was just, you know, a little basic car.
Yeah.
And if the car just got munched into oblivion. And there's 2 cars in my town that are the exact same.
No
So there's two
way.
other
I don't know.
Corollas.
That happens. Sorry.
That's okay. Two other cars that drive around that are the same exact car. And I would hate that because I'd just be just driving around minding my own business, and all of a sudden, boom, little red Corolla is in front of me. And it would just make me so
okay.
sad. And I would just
Like little triggers.
You know, yeah. So it was very
Yeah.
triggering. And I would think to myself, I wish that the people who own those cars would get rid of them.
Sell them.
Seeing these cars driving around. Just get a new
Don't
car.
they know?
This car's standing on his last legs. Come on.
Right.
But you know, I had a mind shift. I saw it one time. And I had this mind shift after we talked to the medium. And I said, you know what? That is not someone trying to stab me in the heart. That is them telling me hello. Like they're saying, Mom, we're here. And when I changed my mindset to where I would see those things, or you would hear a song, or you would see something in a store, it didn't make me sad anymore. It made me happy. Like they're saying hello. They're here. They know what's going on. They're aware of what we're struggling with, and they're cheering us on.
I love that
they still love us,
perspective.
and they're just saying hi. And so that helped. So now when I still see the cars, there was one time we had to drive clear up, like north Phoenix, like up into like Glendale. And there was a stinking red, the same exact car drove with us the entire way.
What?
And I was like, okay,
How?
that was a little bit hard. That was a little bit hard and a little bit weird. And you know, I'm not making this up. We go to drive home, and there was a different little red Corolla driving the entire way home with us.
Wow.
Like how I know that is them just saying, we're here for you on this journey with you.
Yeah.
We're here to do this with you. We're helping. And when I had that change of perspective, it just made it so much easier. And there's been so many times that we've seen them. Like one time I physically saw, well, I'll tell just two little stories.
Okay, yeah.
One time I was at church, and I was walking down the hallways, and at our church there's like these little coves, this little cove that goes up to the stairs that go up to the stage in the basketball court area.
It's an older church?
Yeah, a little bit older.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just kind of look out of the corner of my eye, and I see Caroline, my daughter-in-law. I mean, I literally saw her. It was an actual person standing in front of the stairs looking. And now it turns out it was like a 12-year-old girl. My daughter-in-law was like this tiny, skinniest little thing you've ever seen. But she had the same long hair with the purpley faded out ends, the same kind of little flowery dress with combat boots and tights, like exactly what she would have worn. And it was her. But then obviously it wasn't her. It was
right. But yeah.
But it was just that flash of, you know, it just takes your breath away for a second. You're like, Caroline. And then you're like, her. But that was just so crazy. And then another time, my mom has had Cooper come to her and dream my stepmom. My kids, my daughter has seen, you know, different people in my life have said, Cooper came to me in a dream, or I saw the kids in a dream. And I've never had that. Never had that. And I was still a little bit salty about it. I'm like, where's my dream? Where's my time to give him a hug and see him? And, you know, I'm just kind of like waiting. And so we were going to actually Disney World. This was back in September. And I said, you know, I feel like Disney World's going to be it. You know, I'm really going to see him in a distance, or I'm going to see him somewhere, kind of like I did Carol. I'm going to see him. I know I'm going to see him. Hopefully. And so we go to Disney World, go through the whole day, nothing. Go home, back to the hotel. And I didn't think too much of it. I'm like, you know, whatever, you can't control this stuff. Well, the next day or 2 days later, I went back to Disney World, but the Universal.
Yeah.
They have the big rides. It's like the Rock and Ride and whatever. So we go to the Rock and Ride. I was with two other sheriff's wives, friends of mine. And we get into the ride, and there was three of us. So I was riding by myself in the front, and then the two of them were behind. And this random kid gets in next to me. And it was Cooper.
No way.
Looked just like him. Had the same demeanor. He was even wearing the same kind of clothes like my son would wear. I know these kids they dress funny, but he was wearing like bike shorts, like black spandex shorts, and then other swim trunks, black swim trunks over them.
Right.
and then
Yeah.
like some sort of band t-shirt. And he had
Hmm.
long hair like my son did, but he had it up in a bun. So you can kind
Okay.
of see his face, and he kind of had very thin, kind of a thin, long neck and the bigger nose and the whole thing. And I'm just thinking, this kid is my son. This is so weird.
Wow.
Of course, I'm not going to say anything like, hey, you know who you remind me of?
Yeah.
We chit-chatted just a little bit.
Yeah.
And we go on this ride. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And they flashed a picture, because on those big rides that have a scary spot, they flashed a
Yes.
little picture. So I was able to get the picture.
Uh-huh.
And then at the end, sometimes the ride you'll be finishing, but then it will stop just short of the end, the actual
Yeah.
end. So we
Yeah.
sat there for probably 2 or 3 minutes, which is actually kind of a long time. And
Yeah.
I just thought, this is just getting a couple extra minutes together,
Yeah.
And he
Oh,
said something, the kid said something like, well, I guess this ride's a lot longer than we expected, or, just some little chit-chatty thing. And
yeah.
then we pull up, we get off the ride, and then and the 2 women I was with were just like, are you okay? And I was like, you guys aren't going to believe this. And I told them, and they were like, okay, and wow, that is crazy. And they were crying, and I was crying, and we went and
Yeah.
got the picture. And I'm really glad I have the picture, because then I showed my kids. I was like, look who we sat next to at this
Yeah.
random kid at this ride. And so there's just been those times where they
They show up.
show up. They do.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
like, haven't forgotten us. They're helping us, and they're with
Yeah.
us, and it
And
does
it's
help.
like God knows what you need specifically in those
Yeah.
moments. Yeah. So how are you today, with all of it? Where do you feel like you're at in your grief?
I'm mostly good. We've seen so many blessings. So now, you get a little distance on it, you start seeing more and more blessings. I still have my time. So my time that I spend with the kids is a lot of times on airplanes. So when we go on trips, because you
Mhm.
really can't, you kind of have to just connect a little bit when you go on a trip. You
Yeah.
can watch a
Yeah.
movie or whatever, but even sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you're kind of stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of my time too. So I have a playlist of songs that were either, I wish I could listen to the music they liked, but it's just not
Right.
at all.
I
I
so relate to
can't.
that.
I did from one of the bands they really, really liked, the band is called like Cheers to Mail or something. It's just
Uh-huh.
not my jam at all. But there's a couple of songs, and then just songs that like reminded me of them. A couple of songs that just like really hit me. Like one of the ones that I love is, and I hadn't heard this version until I'm a music in the house person. I don't turn the TV on all day. I'll turn on my Alexa or something and
Yeah.
just have it sing a playlist. I'll do George Strait radio for my mom, or Don Williams radio for my mom, or I'll just I like to listen to if you have Pandora, the Wicked playlist. And so it will play Broadway and Disney and just that kind of American Idol singers. I don't know. It's just it's a really good, just upbeat, feel good kind of a mix. Well, I was listening to it. I was mopping one day. This song came on, and it was a Josh Groban song that he did with Sarah Bareilles. And it's Both Sides Now. That old 70s, who sings it? I can't remember who the 70s person he's like, but you know it. It's a really popular from the 70s, and they remade it, but it's Josh Groban and Sarah Bareilles. It's absolutely mind blowing. It's
I'm
so
gonna
good.
look it up.
Yeah. And that stopped me in my tracks. That song just absolutely stopped me in my tracks. It just punched me right in the gut. And I thought, oh my word, how would I have never heard this version before? And so I immediately downloaded it. So songs like that. I just have my own little things, that I listen to. And so I'll listen to that sometimes when I just feel like thinking about them. But I'll look at pictures and listen to my playlist on the planes. It's kind of my quiet time where no one's going to bother me, and I can just focus on them and think about them. And that's but for the most part though, but we talk about them all the time. Like we talk about the kid, we talk about the baby. Every time we go get donuts, we say, you know who liked donuts? Laney and her mom. So Caroline was a vegan, and she really did not want her baby having sugar or anything. I mean, pretty typical. But Grandpa really liked to go get her donuts. And so
Mm-hmm.
Sunday mornings we'd go get donuts and he'd give her one and she would just demolish that donut. She'd have that thing gone in 30 seconds. And I know Caroline was just like, my gosh,
Oh
I
my
hate this. But
goodness.
she indulged us and she was a good sport about it, never said anything. But so just little things that remind us of them. And
So,
we just talk about it. We talk about it. Like we saw a thing on Instagram about a ramen restaurant in Phoenix. I think it's up in Tempe somewhere. And my gosh, Cooper would have loved that. And so I'll like send it to Mark or I'll send it to Johanna and be like, we should go here on Cooper's birthday, or
yeah.
we do try to celebrate it. We don't go to the graveside a lot.
I was gonna ask you that, if that you
No,
find comfort in that or
no,
not,
not
or
really. So there's a box there that has notebooks and people have come and write little notes to them and there's
oh,
pictures in there. I
like right on
probably,
the graveside,
yeah, just a little Rubbermaid, like a plastic box.
and
I
people leave it
probably should.
alone?
Yeah, oh yeah. I should probably go collect it. I think it's been long enough.
Wow, that's
I've changed out the
neat.
box once because the box got kind of worn and started getting holes and then the water was getting in. But yeah, there's pens and notebooks and a little plastic sleeve to protect the pictures in there. So if anyone comes to visit them, they can write them a little note. And it actually does help sometimes to write them a note because there'll be times where, especially the first like 6 months to a year, where you start getting a little bit overwhelmed with your thoughts and you're thinking about them a lot and you're thinking, I don't
Yeah,
know if this is really productive. So the
right.
thing about the car, and then there was something else I can't remember. I went down to the gravesite and I grabbed a notebook and I just wrote it, and I wrote it as a letter to them,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of just eased that. It just kind of
Oh
took it off my
yeah,
brain, it took it off my mind and put it into the notebook. But so I always still have it. That's just kind of me, how I'm wired, though. If I'm feeling overwhelmed with things to do or whatever, if I get it down on paper, get to-do
yep,
lists,
yep.
then it doesn't stress me out anymore because I don't
I
have to worry about
agree.
trying to
Yeah,
remember. I think I
yeah.
worry more about trying to remember everything. And so then if I have it written down, then I can just free my mind of that. And the same thing with the grief. I think if I'm really feeling something, if I write it in a letter to them, I feel like it preserves it. I'm not worried about trying to remember, and they're going to get the message.
I love
So
that idea. That's
writing it
great.
down
Wow.
is key for me. My daughter's been down there, she's written some stuff, and it's really special to read what other people write, because
Oh,
they
I
have completely
bet.
different memories, they have completely different experience. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think after my daughter got found out she was expecting, after she got pregnant, she was really feeling, because she's thinking, okay, because I know Cooper's up there with my kids, my futures,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
playing around, and so she just wanted to talk to her brother about it. And
I love that idea. That
um,
is really, I don't know. Like, I worry about if I did that where my daughter's buried, if it would even stay put there. But maybe in a smaller, because are you in a smaller town?
um
'Cause I don't think I've been down there.
really, they're at Sandton Memorial Gardens. It's pretty big. They actually just built a
Okay.
big barn mausoleum sort of thing. I mean, it's a
Oh,
pretty
okay.
well known. I mean, you've probably heard of Schneff Farm. Is that Schneff
Yeah,
Farm?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
right there next door. It's the same family that owns it.
Oh, okay,
And
okay,
yeah, so we
okay.
really need to do what we haven't made a priority right now, is what we need to is get their gravestone done. We haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
time. It's
just,
time to do it and make the marker, and it's just a
yeah,
matter of kind of putting the energy into it to make the decisions. Are we doing a picture? Are we doing a sketch? Are we putting a quote? What are we
yeah.
doing? Are we doing all in one? Are we doing, what are we doing? So, because
Right. There's
they're
a
all in
lot.
the same spot.
Okay.
There's two caskets.
Uh-huh.
So I'm pretty sure Caroline is on the bottom with the baby,
Okay.
and then Cooper is layered on top. So they just have one
Baby
spot.
in with Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I love
Yeah, it's
that.
really sweet. She's just kind of in her arm right here. It's
Oh,
really sweet.
no. My goodness.
Oh,
Wow.
when we went to the funeral home, like we hadn't seen them. So they were at the house, they left for the day, and that was it. And
Wow.
that was a Friday. The Wednesday before, I had a really nice talk with Cooper about his future plans and our future plans. And
Yeah.
I just gave him a big hug, and we just kind of little heart to heart, little 5-minute heart to heart in the kitchen. And I just thought, you
Yep.
need to give this kid a big hug. He needs to know you're proud of him. And so had that exchange, but then we didn't see him again until the viewing. And
Wow.
that was really, really hard. That was really hard.
I can't even imagine that.
But at the
Wow.
same time, they did such a good job. And we kind of, the kids and I, even at the funeral home, we were joking. We're like, they would love how they looked. You know, they were a little bit,
Oh, really?
my kids were kind of that little bit goth, not really goth, but just they kind of like that dark, gloomy sort
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
so Cooper's hair. So they asked me, like, do you want him to keep his chops? And so we kept his chops. And then
Oh.
they parted his hair in the middle and it was kind of growing out. And so they parted in the middle and kind of combed it down. And he was wearing a suit. And Cade,
Wow.
my son Cade goes, Cooper looks like he's going to sit up and start reciting Charles Dickens. Old time, you know?
Yeah.
And then she had her hair was super faded. She dyed it purple, but it was bleached. And so it was faded out to like this strawberry pink kind of. Cooper had told me a few days before that it reminded him of strawberry lemonade. It was her hair was like strawberry lemonade, and so they had done a good job of like curling it and getting it all fluffy. And she had this high neck. They really did. They looked like out of a storybook or something. They just looked so perfect and beautiful. And then the baby was just nestled in her arm with all the lace, and she had a little bonnet on, and
I love that.
they looked like little old-timey old English people or something. It was really sweet, and they looked really good. It was hard though. It was hard to see them. It was hard for the family.
I bet.
Hard for the kids.
But I'm glad they looked good, because sometimes that's not the case.
They did look
that's
good.
And they did a good job.
Even when we talked to Cooper after it, when we talked to the at the medium, he said, I looked good. You didn't see me for a long time, but then I looked good.
Oh,
it looked good. And we said he would like how he looked. He'd have been happy.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Wow. Janel.
Another really cool thing was like our kids. I want to talk about the kids a little bit, the other kids. Because that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. They had the siblings, the kids, you know, they'd had their scuffles, they had their disagreements, they had their moments. But we're pretty good at just, you know, letting that stuff kind of fall away and just be together, even before the accident. And it was very awesome to see my kids jump into their own roles. They all kind of took over their own role. And it was so wonderful to have helpful, productive people, I guess, to say.
Yeah.
Like, one example was like my daughter. She was so good. Like, first of all, she was the first one that came over and went with us to the hospital, and then we all met there, and she just was Velcro to me, which I needed, because, like, for one example, at the funeral home when we had the viewing, I mean, you just have hundreds of people were just coming, and family and close friends was hundreds of people. And my husband kept getting kind of pulled away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but she was right next to me the whole time. And that meant a lot to me. Just someone to kind of help me absorb everybody else's emotions. It almost felt like we were consoling people.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just feeling that numbness.
Yeah.
And these people were seeing the kids and seeing us, and they were just losing it, understandably.
Yeah.
And there were so many people who loved Cooper and Carolyn and the baby. And so to have my daughter just physically right next to me was so helpful. And even when we would be at the house the first few days, she would answer the door. Like, I'm not answering like, I just felt like I was one with my chair. Like, I couldn't even hardly move most of the day. And so she would be the one who would get up and answer the door and deal with the dog and put out the flowers. It was kind of one thing that bugged me, that my mom wasn't there, because my mom would have been so helpful, and she would have been kept my house done, my laundry done, and my flowers watered. You know, we're getting hundreds of things of flowers and all this stuff, and she would have been so good at just helping me maintain. But I had Sadie, and she was amazing. And then my son Cade, my oldest son, he was just my execution, like, get it done, like anything I needed done. So, like, one example was Caroline's mother didn't really want anyone to know about the accident. She didn't want to know it was Caroline. I'm not sure why, but it got out in the news. But then I think the mother came over to our house, and I think she saw, you know, the flowers and the food and everything everywhere, and was starting to feel a little like not loved.
Right.
but she didn't want to tell anybody at the same time. Like she didn't have a big family. So I was close with her family and they're LDS. And I told my son, I said, this is her address. Just get them the love. They need food. They need flowers. They need support. They need calls. They need whatever they need, get it. And he was just, boom, he made 2 phone calls, done. They were getting meals and outpouring and all of that stuff.
Wow.
So I could just count on him to go do that stuff. And then Wyatt, it was just like, can you go get 4 bags of ice? Can you go drop this off at someone's house? Can you go pick this up for me? Can you? And he was just like, yes, yes, yes. He was just doing everything.
He's the runner.
The runner. And so just to have everybody in their roles was just so helpful. And it really pulled us together even tighter. Like we all have a specific need. We need all of you for certain reasons. And they were all there just to support us and to lean on each other. It was really awesome to see my adult kids step up and just be there for each other and for us and for the grandparents and do all of that. They've come through it really well. My second to the youngest, Wyatt, he was the one that he had lost. So our nephew, it's actually my husband's cousin's son, but feels like a nephew.
Right.
Took his life this September right before that. So my kids lost a grandma suddenly that they were really close with. She was like a young, fun grandma. Like my other son had just been skiing with her the winter before.
Oh my goodness.
Like she was like
skiing.
Yeah, skiing. So we lost our mom, then David took his life, and then the kids. And it was just a lot. And then another friend had actually been at our house, a friend of his. We didn't know her family, but we were out of town. She came over with some other kids. She left and got into a 1-car accident and died. So my poor son was just, I think up into that, even up till that point, he needed grief counseling. So we did get him some life coaching, grief counseling, and he's 100% better. There's resources out there for the kids, for the siblings.
That's good to know.
Yeah, there's resources out there. There's charities. There's one called Winged Hope, and they will get for kids under 21 who've lost like a sibling or a parent, that will provide grief counseling for them, and they match them with a counselor that is good for them, and it's a whole thing.
Okay.
There's definitely resources. A friend of ours just passed away, and he left behind 6 young children and a wife. He got 2 types of cancer and all sorts of stuff, and he passed away pretty quickly. It was like 6 to 8 months, I think, from the time he started feeling kind of weird until he died.
Yeah.
And so it was just, that's the kind of stuff, like if I hadn't had my experience, I wouldn't be able to give her the connection. Like, here's grief counseling for your 6 kids. Like there's so many things that once you go through it and you learn, you can help others hopefully as much as possible. That's kind of the goal at this point is what can I do now to pay it forward? Because I mean, I could seriously talk your ear off for 2 hours about just the blessings that we received. Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful for even all the things that you said, because I don't even have to ask you the questions that I was going to ask, because you just very wonderfully answered them in your talk, in what you were saying. So I'm grateful for that. And you have so many great things to say. And I just love your perspective and how you've, changed some of your thinking from, thinking that the red Corolla is a negative thing into a positive thing. And I think that a lot of us could benefit from trying to, have that paradigm shift a little bit, and some of that comes up. So it's easy to get caught up in the wallowing or, the making it about me. It's easy to do that. But I think that you thrive and you progress when you can try to, be positive and make the best of certain triggers and different things like that. But that does take time, and it just does. It takes some. I don't even know, for everybody. It's just so different, but
it is so different. And that's one thing I think you start to learn is it's not the same for anybody. So everything you're feeling is like, oh, it's okay. Like it's normal, whatever it is, it's normal. But there's no wrong way to. I mean, it felt very weird. We had some really close friends come over, people that knew Cooper when he was little for years and years. And you're laughing about stories, and it's like it's only been like 24 hours, but yet you find it has to have waves, because you
Yeah,
can't be
yeah.
down all the time or you will drown. It's
Right.
you have to have those up times where you're thinking of a funny memory or a happy
Yep.
story and you laugh about it. And that's part of the
So
healing.
true.
You don't have to feel like you should just be crying for months on end. I mean, you could cry for months on end. And sometimes you're just
Yeah.
living about your normal life and you're still just crying. Like tears are
Right.
coming down, but you're doing the dishes and you're making dinner and you're just crying. But then there's other times that it's okay to be laughing about, some stupid story that they did when they were kids, or
Yeah. Yep.
sometime that he really made you mad, or whatever, because he
Yeah.
was a hard kid. He was a middle
Yeah.
child and he was just difficult. And it's
Yeah.
okay to admit that. It's okay to love them for their hardship. And I feel like he was the kid. I felt this before he passed away. He's the kid that taught me the most.
Oh,
Definitely taught me the
really?
most about who I was as a person, who I am as a mom. He struggled. He struggled with drugs. He struggled in school, and he made a full recovery and was finally getting to be the person that I knew he could be. And then
Yeah.
the Lord took him back, and I had to deal with that a little bit. I had to come to terms with the fact that I poured so much into this one child just to keep him alive
Yeah.
from the ages of 14 to 19, basically, because he was living on the edge. I mean, we were expecting a call that he had passed away for years
Right.
with his
Right.
lifestyle and his drug addiction and all of that. Then to see him turn a corner, go through more tragedy himself, then find this girl, have this baby, pay his debt to society, turn his life completely around. He had just told us the night before he died, he had told Mark, he goes, "Dad, I paid off my last fine. On Sunday, I have to take one more driving course and then I can get my driver's license back." He goes, "I am so excited." And then they were going to,
Yeah.
as soon as they did that, they were going to go down and get their marriage license and then get married over Christmas.
My
He
goodness.
was this close to
Right.
getting it all.
Right.
And he was so happy. And one of the true ways that if you have a child who's ever been a drug addict, this. He had $1,600 saved. So for someone who had lived the lifestyle he did, to have $1,600 cash saved, that's when I knew he's going to be okay.
It's a big deal.
He's going to be
Really.
okay, because
Yeah.
I can believe him when he says, "We're done. We're parents. We're straightening up. We're done being crazy." But a funny story about that money. So after they passed away, he just told us, "I have $1,600 saved in cash. It's hidden in my room." So we thought we were going to go find that cash and give it to the kids, give it to his siblings, because that's what he
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't find it. We couldn't find it anywhere. We looked through their stuff. I just could not find it. And so finally, husband goes in there, goes into the closet, and he was like, "Where would I have put this if I was Cooper?" And he sees these boxes he had these really big, expensive Star Wars action figures, like $500 for these very detailed things. And the action figures were in front of the boxes, and the boxes were like a little back at the top corner of a big walk-in closet. And he was like, "They're up there." So he moves the dice. Sure enough, opens one of the boxes. Inside several layers of these very intricate boxes was this envelope. And it said, he had written on it. So the money was in there, and he had written on it $1,600 and then the dollar sign, and it said, "This is not money." Like, as if somebody was like robbing us.
Okay, then
they would find it and they'd say, "Oh, it's not money. This is not money."
I'll just set it aside.
So funny. It's like, why did he put this?
That's
It was
so
so well
funny.
hidden too. I'm like,
Yeah.
I would never have found that. I would probably chuck those boxes or try to put the guys back in the boxes or something,
Yes.
But luckily we found it. But it was just funny that those
That
little
is
quirky
funny.
things, you just forget about, that you're just like,
And you can laugh about, and
yeah, we laughed so hard.
I bet.
And then there was one of the things that made me probably cry the hardest was they had done one of these of their hands, like a mold of their hands.
Yeah.
and it
Plaster or
was like a
something?
plaster.
Mhm.
And my daughter and I were in there just kind of looking at their stuff. And I have this really good friend who cleans for me. And I had asked her, I said, can you just go through all the trash, like get rid of all the trash and just put their belongings into the closet. I need the room because we have these people coming into town, but
Right.
I can't deal with their stuff right now. So she did that for me, which I know was so hard for her to be, because I couldn't touch their stuff. I didn't want to touch it, but I needed it moved.
Yeah.
And so she had put it all in there. So Sadie and I were in there looking at all of their stuff, and we found this hand mold of them with their hands like this. And it was kind of chippy. It wasn't in great shape. But they had written on it because they had come through drug addiction and they had come through so much, and they had this baby and they're so happy. And on it, they had written in Sharpie, "We are not failures. We are lovers." And she and I saw that, and we just burst into tears because they weren't failures. They were good kids, and they made their choices, and then they did better. And they just seeing that, just hearing them try to pump themselves up, and feel good about themselves, and that was,
and proud of their accomplishments.
There's just always like a roller coaster. We're laughing about the money, and then we're crying about the hands. It is a roller coaster.
But I'm sure that your friend cleaning lady was so honored that you asked her to do that, even though it was hard for her. Like, I love that you allowed other people to help.
Yeah.
That's such a big thing. It's
such an important part of healing. You have a lot of other people to share those feelings so that they can deal with their grief. I mean, they're feeling grief as well.
Yeah.
So,
that's so true. Wow. Janel, well, do you have anything else? I mean, you could probably tell me more, but I just don't want to cut you off or anything.
We have, we're building our backyard into a resort in honor of them, and putting a bench and some stuff out there for them. Our son is getting married on a week from this coming Friday. So we're going to have and their reception will be out in the backyard. And so it's going to be kind of the first time we can honor them out there with the family.
That's so
we're
neat.
doing my husband always wanted a wiffle ball field in his backyard.
No way.
And so his family, the Lambs, they're big into wiffle ball, big into wiffle ball. He played for years. And so we finally had the space, and we finally put down the turf, and my other son, Wyatt, built the wall, the backstop wall, whatever you want to call it. He's actually painting it green today. And we had it commissioned to make a big scoreboard, and the other kids, nobody knows except for Wyatt, who's building the wall, but it's going to be Cooper Field.
Oh, that is so cool.
It's going to be so cool. And my husband is so excited. This is just his way to just honor Cooper and keep him, in the forefront of our mind. Yes, keep him close. And we know Cooper would love that too. So we're going to have Cooper Field. And everybody we know basically is coming over next Friday night, and they're going to see it. And so that's going to be really fun for my husband.
Oh, so neat.
We just try to honor them, and we'll never stop. We'll just always try to honor them. Down the road someday, when I can afford it, I'm going to get his favorite car, probably, which is like a little, just a all black, murdered out BMW sedan. That's what he always wanted. And I'm just like, you know what? If I can ever just have my own little grandma car, that's what I'm going to get. So,
that's a good idea.
I love that. So we're just going to keep doing things to just honor them. And, besides pictures on the walls and stuff we'll be doing going forward, we're going to be always looking for ways to keep them close and keep them right with us.
Yeah. What's Cooper's birthday?
It's April 2nd.
April 2nd. Oh, okay. And then it was December 16th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just want to keep that in mind. But, well, Janel, I'm sure you have a lot to get ready for the upcoming wedding and just everything else that you're involved in. So I, again, appreciate you coming and sharing such a very personal story, but you had such great insight and perspective, and I know it can help a lot of other people. So
Thank you. I hope so. I
thank
hope
you.
so. And I want to continue talking about it. I want to, I'll probably be doing some speaking. I've been talking to
Yeah.
some groups about coming out and speaking.
Oh,
Because I
wonderful.
just think it's a very important, one thing you realize when you go through a tragedy is people like to share their stories with you. And so
Mhm.
it made us realize very quickly that everybody's going through something really tough
Yeah.
and everybody needs support. It may not be extreme tragedy like we had, where we had a whole chunk of our family wiped out at once in a very
Right.
public, horrible, gruesome way.
Right.
But I heard a quote the other day that I saved, and it says, "It doesn't matter if you're drowning in 7 feet of water or 700 feet of water, you're still drowning." So I don't want anyone who hears my story to think, "Oh, but she lost a grandbaby and a son," and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Some people can't get over losing their pet. Like, it's just
Right.
all depends on where
Yes.
you are and what your past experience have been. And I don't want anyone to feel like their grief isn't as bad or it isn't as terrible or tragic because it's
Right.
not 3 kids. It was only 1 kid, or it was only an older parent, or what. It doesn't matter. It's still hard.
It is.
Losing my mom was kind of I didn't know it at the time, a little preview,
Right.
but it
Yeah.
actually helped me deal a lot better losing Caroline, because I had a very similar experience with her passing as I did with my mom, where we were able to talk to her and she could hear,
Mhm.
but she couldn't. We
Right.
just said something, tears just squeaking out of her
Oh,
little eyes,
no way.
and I know she heard us, and it was really nice to be able to talk to her. But watching how she passed, as I had just seen my mom pass very similar, it was helpful. It was helpful to take that experience and then, use it to help me through the next.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
the bottom line is, we're not over. Like, as long as you're alive, you're probably gonna have more hard stuff.
You're not immune to it ever.
No, it's not like you get your one and done. Like, there's more
Right.
coming. There's more
Yep.
coming. And I think what's important is to use that to strengthen you, so that the next time you have more strength behind you to help you deal
It's
with
so
it. Instead of
true.
letting it take you down, 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 help
Yep.
it build you up, up, up,
Yep.
and be
And that's your
stronger, not
choice.
harder.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You do. You have to make a conscious choice to do that. It's very important.
It's easy to get stuck.
So easy
Yep.
to get stuck.
Yep.
Yes. So
Oh, wonderful. Well, I appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Yep. You bet.
Hey listeners, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you felt encouraged and gained some insight. If you want to hear more inspiring stories, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to check out the website at pieces2peace.net. If you or someone you know has a story you'd like to share, send an email to heatherstephen@pieces2peace.net. Until next time, keep moving forward.